Hi, Ian here from As Is, and today we'll be talking about our new track, Across the Shadows, and specifically the vocal processing which we use. We'll talk about basic vocal processing, as well as some specific details that we use to help make this song come to life. We're in the project file of Across the Shadows, our latest release, and a few things to talk about before we get started with talking about the vocals. When you're going through a vocal take, it's important to kind of have a good treated room if you can. Now, most of us don't have rooms that are completely sound treated or $1,000 microphones. So the best thing that you can do is try to find like the quietest area and get like a little bit of soundproofing if you can, and get a good mic and experiment with some mic placements as you're recording these, and try to spend some time testing, especially if you can be in the room with the vocalist as you're going through these, and you can kind of troubleshoot and figure out what the best placement is for that vocalist's voice. And I recommend reading and watching some videos on mic placement and such. Now, there are some things that you can do if the room does have like some ambient buzz to it or isn't treated and it needs some work. You can get a plug-in like Isotopes RX, and even the Elements version of that, which is pretty cheap, especially when it goes on sale, can get you some good results. The last thing I'm going to say before we jump into the project file is when working with vocals, especially when using plugins like Isotopes Nectar, they're sometimes, depending on your computer, and I would say for most people's computers, are pretty CPU intensive. So what you're going to want to do a lot of times is kind of freeze it or resample or render it down. So that way you're kind of minimizing some of the processing power that's taking on your computer. I'm going to turn off the processing to start so you can kind of just hear what it sounds like without. And it's definitely under the mix because we do some volume adjustments, but let me put it on so you can hear the end effect.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
Now we'll go through each and every aspect of our chain here, and I'll talk to you about kind of our thought process and why we did what we did. So first off, we have a saturator. And the Ableton Stack Saturator is a really good plugin. If you don't use it frequently on your projects, start using it, try it, mess around with it, see how you like it. Now with a vocal, you don't want to saturate it too much and get it distorted. We just added 3 decibels of analog clip saturation, just a little bit of a boost in volume because the vocal itself, as you can hear,
I know you're only with me in my mind.
Isn't really that loud, so that allows us to add some character and boost the volume and add some like warmth with the saturator. Now, second in chain, we've got 2 nectars, and they're both doing different things. So this nectar, it's kind of like our Swiss Army knife, so we got a little bit of everything going on. We don't have any pitch correction going on. We do have a little bit of a gate, an EQ, just touching up a couple spots. This is more of like a surgical EQ here. A pretty intense de-esser. And then a little bit more surgical EQing, and then just a touch of boosting there. So I'll let you hear how that sounds now.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
Bypass.
I still feel you when I close my eyes.
Now on to our second instance of Nectar. So I'll turn that on.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
I'll show you what it's doing here. And the big thing that we have going on with this instance of Nectar is we have a dynamic EQ that just tracks
I know you're
some of the low-end mud. You can see it here.
in my mind.
And what this does is it's going to clean out just a little bit of the room noise and the noise that you don't need in the vocal. As you can see, this is our main fundamental kind of frequency here. So it's just kind of shaving off some of the low end. And then, once again, a little bit of a de-esser. We kind of did an approach of like a serial de-esser on here. So we had a stronger one on the first one and then a little bit less on the second. Speaking of serial de-essing, let's talk about serial compressing now. So with a vocal, you don't want to over-compress, and that's something that happens a lot. What you can do is you can use different instances of compression and small to medium amounts as opposed to having one compressor do a lot of the work for you. And you can see on our chain here, we have the FabFilter Pro C2, as well as the glue compressor, the stock glue compressor from Ableton. And these both provide a little bit different characteristics. If you look at what we have set up here through the Pro C2, the attack is pretty fast at 7.89 milliseconds, and then the release 157 milliseconds, so kind of in the middle. And you got to play with the attack and release, but I would say generally if you have a fairly fast attack on the compressor, it kind of sounds, at least for this vocal, it sounded a little bit more natural.
I know you're only with me in my mind. I still feel
And you can see the
when I
metering up
close
here.
my
We're not
eyes.
compressing too much, and that's kind of what
I
you
know
want, and you
you're
kind of want to mess
only
around
with me
with these
in
attack
my
and release
mind.
to kind of get more of a rounded as opposed to like
But I
a,
still
you can try to see if I can show you like
when
a
I
jagged
close
result.
my eyes. I know you're only with me in my mind.
It's kind of finding that sweet spot where you still, it has a little bit more curved result as opposed to like a almost like a stock chart that's zigging and zagging. For this one, especially a faster attack is what really worked, but finding that sweet spot between the attack and the release is going to help you a lot with compressors. And now we have the glue compressor on, so same kind of idea, but we have it parallel compressing at 49%, not quite 50, but close. And this one we have on a longer attack actually and a short release.
I know you're only with
And you can see though with the
me in
metering
my
is there's
mind.
not a whole lot being reduced.
I still feel you when I close my
We kind of add the
eyes.
makeup gain to help put that back
I
in.
know you're only with me in my mind.
So in this instance, the makeup gain also is a way for us to boost a little bit. So let's do a quick refresh here.
I know you're
Off.
only with me in my mind.
So with all these so far, these are kind of our cleanup and adding and boosting. What we have now is a more in-front vocal.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
And it's just shaped a little bit better throughout. Now we look at some ways to add some width and depth to the mix. We added a flanger on here, and this is pretty uncommon, but you can see it's only just under 4%.
I know you're
So it's just
only
really
with
subtle.
me in my mind. I know you're only with me.
But just adds just a touch of character. And now we add the micro shift, which is a plugin from Sound Toys. A really nice plugin.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
And this is the lead vocal clarity preset. I think I might have tweaked just a few little things in here, but it's pretty much close to the preset.
I know you're only.
And you can hear with that, it just adds a little bit more depth. There's a delay layer that gets added into that.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
So that helps to add some depth and width to the vocal. Now we go into more detailed work and depth and width to kind of let that vocal fit within the song itself. Now if we listen to it without this delay chain or reverb chain,
I know you're only with
it sounds
me
nice,
in my mind.
but it doesn't really have the character yet that it needs for the song. Now if we add delay and reverb chain, well, we'll go one at a time. Delay chain.
I know you're only with me in my mind. I still feel you when I close my eyes. I know you.
With this delay chain, you can see that we've automated the wet signal. We have a dry and wet signal, and we've kind of blended in the volume of the wet. But at the ends of phrases, we're kind of doing like a little delay throw. And we do that by adding the wet. So that's a nice little detail thing to add. Now let's add the reverb chain, so then you can kind of hear them both working together.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
There's also a glue compressor at the end of the reverb chain. Kind of compress that reverb a little bit.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
And the same idea with the delay. We kind of have some reverb throws at the end. We do with the dry wet percentage. And this is just some subtle elements that you can add to your vocals with these like throws at the end of phrases, and just to add some more depth and motion to the vocal. Now the last thing on this chain is the FabFilter Pro Q3. And we definitely prefer this Pro Q3 versus Ableton stock EQing. It's just a little bit more control over the EQing process itself. Now you'll notice we're doing another cleanup EQ here. Just rolling off some of the lows from the room, and then from the addition of the saturator and stuff like that, and the makeup gain. And up here, if you just want to listen to this frequency here, we just kind of sweeten that band a little bit and boosted it 3.1 dB. Now we can listen to the whole vocal chain. On, off. So certainly that's not the only way to process some vocals, but this is what we found for this track that really worked. And some principles like using the nectar the way that we did is a good way to go about it. You don't necessarily need 2 instances of it, but what we were trying to do, the 2 instances made more sense. And then kind of using some serial compression in a vocal is going to help that, because you don't want to squash it. And that's one of the worst things you can do is overcompress a vocal. And then some of that detailed work with the delay chain and the reverb chain can really help your vocal kind of come to life in the mix. Now let's look at a few other elements of vocal instances that we did that kind of helped bring this track to life a little bit. Right from the beginning, we had this hum take that Marissa did for the track. You can hear it in context now.
I know you're only with me in my mind.
Tucking some other vocal elements in as kind of atmospheres in the mix help to glue everything together in our experience. And something as simple as just humming a melody really adds a lot to the track. Without it in there, it still sounds good, but it adds a lot more to have that hum in there. And there's a bunch of these little kind of vocal ad-lib things in here.
Close my eyes.
And that is just so subtle that you probably won't even hear it or miss it much, but it adds a little bit. It's the same idea as using those reverb throws and delay throws at the end of phrases, just adding more depth. And you can see after the drop, there's these call and response kind of vocal ad-libs. This one we shifted down, so it's still Marissa in this.
I know you're only with me.
All right, now for one of the last interesting vocal things, at least in our opinion, that we did in this song, is this I'm just calling to say.
I'm just calling to say
What we did is we added the phone EQ from Pro Q3, and it's a preset in here, and you can probably make something like this in Ableton stock, just kind of banning off a frequency that would kind of sound like you're talking through a phone. And just adding that little thing, I think just really adds to the meaning of the song. So it literally sounds like you're coming through a phone.
I'm just calling to say
then the same idea here with the I love you. So in the second drop, it's I'm just calling to say, and then I love you.
I'm just calling.
So the I love you also has the FabFilter Pro Q3 phone EQ on it. But one little Easter egg we added in here is we turned off the Pro Q3 phone EQ right as it goes into the outro. So I'll let you hear that. And it just kind of gives that little bit of emphasis that we were going for in the story of the song, that you can almost feel that person right there. It's not a call anymore.
I love you.
And then back on again.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
So personally for me, that's like one of the greatest moments in the song, because it's just so different and such a small little detail, but it hits you right in the feels. So finding little ways to do stuff like that in your production is going to help you take it to the next level. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to listen to the full song, I'll link that over here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments and we'll continue the conversation there. And additionally, if you have any specific tips or tricks that you like to use when you're processing vocals, drop them in the comments so we can continue a discussion. If you like this video, please subscribe, as we'll continue to make videos like this for our music and Ableton tutorials. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great day.